So on the trail also, the phrase hike your own hike is thrown out a lot. I kind of hate that phrase personally. But in this case, it's kind of a big deal. If you were hiking with other people, for instance, and you are constantly pushing high mileage, or maybe you're going a lot slower trying to stay with someone, it can be very detrimental both physically and mentally. For instance, there are people that hike many, many more miles than I possibly could a day. There were people I was meeting on the trail who were banging out 30s, like no issue, and that's cool, but I would in no way, shape, or form want to be doing that on the AT personally. And could I do it? Possibly. Probably. I feel like I probably could have done it. But mentally, that would have just been like draining, mentally and physically. So I think it helps to kind of reassess your hike and maybe reassess your goals too. Perhaps you're trying to push yourself too hard or try to get to a certain point by a certain date or something.
Right.
Yeah, maybe taking the time to reassess what you're doing.
Yeah, and just going back to why you're out there, was your goal to get it done in 4 months? Why are you trying to do back-to-back 28, 29, 30 mile days? Like, is it because you feel like you have to? And if you do, why? Like, that was one thing that I would always kind of try to have a plan of what I wanted to do that day. And I remember in the beginning, it was really hard to let go of that. So, you know, you're looking at your guidebook and you're like, I'm going to go 18 miles today. And then there was like one really distinct moment in Virginia when hiked all day. For some reason, the miles were not necessarily harder, but they were definitely slower. And we got to this, I was waiting for Nicole, my best friend, and I was with Leapfrog, an extra mile. And we got to this spot and it was like right by the water. There was really nice campsites, but it was only mile 15. And I was like, well, I can't stop here. I got to keep going. I said I was going to go to mile 18. And then it was like taking a second to be like, well, why do I have to go that extra 3 miles? You know, here it is, a beautiful spot. Yep. I'm with friends. I could stay here. So it's like a lot of those numbers are just arbitrary, and you're just you're sticking to them and you're being loyal to them for really no reason. So
yeah, it's all mental. I had a very similar experience. I want to say it was Virginia too, but I had planned to do something like 15, and I think I made it 8. And I crossed this campground, and after it was this sweet, like super, super big stream, and a couple people were hanging out there, and I got there and was just like, oh, there's a perfect camping spot here. I could go like swim around in the water. And the weather was supposed to be really bad that night too. And I sat there for an hour and a half debating whether or not to keep going until I finally was just like, meh, whatever, I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
So I just pitched my tent, went swimming, washed my like clothes at the time in the little stream there, and went to bed. And kind of glad I did, because it absolutely downpoured and thunder and lightning that like couple hours later. Yeah. So I think I made the good call, but definitely like even if it's not the case, I don't know, you just don't feel like pushing that far that day. Definitely just reassess and be like, I don't really need to get here. It's just, you know, a mental thing you've set for yourself.
So just being flexible with that. And I especially got that way in the beginning when it rained. I was so diehard about it. Like, screw it, I'm gonna hike anyway. And I would just hike in the rain. And then towards the end, I would try to kind of, I mean, you're gonna hike in the rain regardless, but I would like adapt around it. So there was one day I remember it was pouring. I got to a shelter and we were all watching the radar, and it said that in like 3.5 hours it was going to stop. And I was like, well, I could either go hike for 3.5 hours or I could hang out here. And I literally did it. Like, I just stayed in the shelter. There's probably 5 other people. We like talked, we had a nice lunch, and sure enough that, you know, it cleared up in 3.5 hours, and then I could do my miles then. So it's like, why would I force myself to push through those hours of torrential downpour when I could just wait for it to pass? And it's like, what difference does it really make? So
I had another very similar experience. I forget what shelter it was. You could get pizza delivered there, and it was like the house on it. Yeah, it was the 405.
That was Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it was in Pennsylvania. There were probably 20 of us there at the shelter and like camping around it. And I woke up in the morning and there were no tents left anymore. I couldn't see a single person. It was pouring rain, and I was like, I can't believe everybody got up and left. Like, this makes no sense. I jumped up, packed up my stuff super quick, and ran into the shelter. Every single person, with the exception of 5, I think a group of 5 actually left and hiked, but everybody else was just hanging around inside of the shelter waiting for it to pass.
Because why not?
Yeah, because why? If you can avoid hiking in the rain, you bet I'm going to avoid hiking in the rain. You know, reassess your situation. It might be hard to do, but, you know, you enjoy hiking with someone and they can't keep up. You can either slow down and adjust your hike that way, or if you're on a time frame. For instance, Elmer Fudd, Dan, who I hiked with, had to finish. He absolutely needed to finish the trail in 5 months. A visa issue. He only had 5 months. He's had 6 technically, but was already in the States for a month beforehand, and he needed to be out of the country. So for him to have waited for me, for instance, when I was in Marion, would have been stupid, and he would have risked not being able to complete his hike. And he went on, and I completely understand. I was like, yeah, dude, I would in no way, shape, or form expect you to wait. So I don't know, I guess be ready to reassess and understand that you may not be hiking with, you know, so-and-so forever.
I think reassessing too, like after a while, you'll kind of figure out your own like rhythm, I guess, and kind of what makes you tick. And every hiker is different. And for mentally what sets you off. Some people, I don't know if anyone likes walking in the rain, but some people really hate it, and other people are like, it's okay. Some people, heat bothers them different, and you just have to figure out what works for you, because mentally, like I know my friend that I was hiking with, she hated mornings, hated waking up early. Like mentally that was really stressful on her. Whereas myself, I didn't like sleeping in late. If I saw that we didn't leave camp till 10:30, 11, that would mentally be tough on me because I felt like we'd wasted all morning. Whereas her not getting the full time of sleep and kind of getting to relax in the morning, that was mentally tough on her.
Yeah.
And neither answer is right or wrong. It's just understanding that, you know, you have to assess your own hike and kind of how are you? Like, what kind of person are you?
Yeah. Personal preference.
Yeah. Oh, another thing, just on that same topic, was my first time ever night hiking wasn't till Maine. I just never did night hiking. First of all, I think because I didn't want to do it alone. It kind of scared me. But I don't know. I personally like getting to camp at like 6 or 7, and just having some free time. Whereas we met a guy who I hadn't seen since the beginning. Just like, it was like 11 at night probably when we got into Maine, and he just came zooming past us like with his headlamp on, and he specifically waits to like hike. He would wait to hike at night because he preferred night hiking. And so for him that just worked. He thought it was peaceful. There was no heat, there was no bugs.
Nobody around.
Yeah, so that's what he liked. Yeah, and that would work for him to be positive. So I mean, to each their own.
Yeah, there's a way to hike, and choose your own. So I hate to say it, but hike your own hike. Don't hike someone else's. So go your own speed, go your own pace.
Go your own way.
Yeah,
you can go your own way.
So the last thing on the list is learning the history of the trail. This is something that I didn't do too much personally. I didn't do too much research on most of the areas on the trail, or I knew some of the history, I suppose, but there's a lot of history that you not only pass on the trail, but history of the trail itself. I would suggest anyway, familiarize yourself a little bit with that history. I know for a fact that we crossed some pretty historic towns, Harper's Ferry being the one that sticks out most prominently. I know that there were a couple Civil War battlefields that we supposedly crossed over. Civil War, Appalachian Trail history, the actual creation of the trail, how it came to be. You cross what's that mountain in Vermont? It's got the fire tower on it, supposedly where the actual idea of the trail was conceived. So it was Stratton Mountain that we were talking about. Familiarize yourself with the history, and I think that would be something cool to do anyway.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And just people who have hiked it before you. You'll hear about, legends like Grandma Gatewood and all these people who've hiked it before you. And that kind of works as like two ways. So one way is just, it is kind of cool knowing that, little bits and pieces are rerouted, but basically you're hiking the same trail that thousands of people have before you, And so that in itself is kind of cool. But just going back to the whole grateful thing, realizing that people that hike it today, when we hiked it and, when you hike it, and just the technology that you have now and the resources, think about the people, even back in the 80s, 90s that did it, that, no GPS, no phone, there weren't hostels in every town, resupply was so much harder, there wasn't lightweight gear, all the things that we have now. Just kind of think about the people, what they had to endure before you.
Take your time, learn a little bit of history, and I think you'll enjoy all the things that you see out there, out on the trail. They'll have maybe a little bit more significance to you when you pass them.
And just a side thing, say what you will about Bill Bryson's A Walk in the Woods. I know it's very controversial in the hiking community. I did listen to that on audiobook when I was hiking. He gives a lot of really good information that are just fact-based. If you don't necessarily like his story that he tells, he has a lot of black and white facts about the trail in the book. So I actually learned a lot about the trail just from what he states in that novel. So you could kind of start there if you're interested.
Yeah, cool. There's all sorts of cool books on the AT. She's got Walk in the Woods. I'm midway through. What's the name of that Grandma Gatewood book? Is it just called, I think it's Grandma Gatewood's Walk or something like that.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. That you were reading that?
Yeah, I got a couple other White Mountains books in particular, just because that's where I hike regularly. But there's so much history out there, so learn it. And then when you pass the places, you'll be like,
it's even cooler.
Yeah, this is a pretty sweet spot. All right, and that's gonna wrap it up for this little series of videos. I hope you found it helpful in some way, shape, or form, and I hope it helps keep you positive on your upcoming thru hike or future thru hike. Best of luck out there to the class of 2018, who should be getting going very soon. Hope you all have a great hike. It's been great. It's been fun. If you enjoyed the videos, consider dropping them a like. If you loved it, consider commenting and subscribing to the channel. You can follow me on Instagram at Chris Goes Outdoors, and you can follow a Big Mama on Instagram
at Mostly Freebird, and my blog is mostlyfreebird.com.
Yeah, so thank you again for tuning in. It was great. We had a lot of fun. Nice to have Big Mama down here to make some videos, and hopefully we'll make a couple more at some point, and we'll catch you then. So stay tuned, everyone.
Good luck.
Yeah, best of luck. See you in the next one.